What's going on, everyone? Here for Match Week 20 MLS predictions for this upcoming midweek slate. We just had Match Week 19 this past weekend. After most teams were off for about 2 weeks there with the international window, we had a couple games mixed in between there in the week between, but most teams had those 2 weeks off, and it helped some teams. It definitely didn't help others who were in hot form. And just to go over some of those results, we had the Crew on the road against NYCFC. Huge win for them to bounce back from their Champions Cup loss. Huge 3 points. They're going to look to really climb up those Eastern Conference standings now that that's behind them. And then we had Montreal and RSL with a 0-0 draw. Probably the most surprising result to me, just with how hot RSL has been. But that break could have, taken off that match feel and chemistry a little bit. And then we had Galaxy taking on Kansas City. Galaxy without Ricky Puig for I think the first time this year, so it's going to be interesting to see how they coped without him. But the midfield still stepped up. They had a dominating win, even though Casey's been bad. It was still impressive for them to come through in the way that it did. And Paintsill is back now after about a month off because of an injury, so he should be set to go here and be a regular starter. I would hope. And then staying in the West Coast, probably the best game of the whole weekend for a neutral. We had San Jose Cincy, who was scoreless at half, and then we get 6 goals in the second half. San Jose up 2-1 late, and then Yaya Kubo with a hat trick in about 10 to 15 minutes there. 4-2 win for Cincy, and everyone's just been stepping up for them. Really, really resilient win there. And yeah, so we have 13 games here on the slate for this midweek slate. And yeah, just to preface this, I'm not going to be going over any betting picks because I want to see what these lineups look like, and I expect a lot of rotation. So look out for those on my Twitter. It's going to be at MLS Digest. Same thing as the YouTube page name. And yeah, I'm definitely going to look to attack a lot of these games in terms of betting. But I want to wait for those lineups because of just uncertainty about who's really going to play here, because it might affect my outlook on certain games. But definitely look to have a handful of picks there for sure. But in terms of this slate, we're just going to go over every game, see who's probably in and out, and what I'm looking out for in each. So yeah, let's just get into those. So to kick off the slate here, we have Montreal hosting New York. Montreal obviously gets to stay home after that 0-0 against RSL, and then New York coming on the road here from home after their own 0-0 against Nashville. Montreal obviously in 12th here. They've actually gotten points in all of their last 4 games, but 3 of those have been draws, so they definitely want to look to pick up some more wins here as we get into the second half of the season. But yeah, they've just been so riddled by injuries, especially in midfield, where now they lost a couple players for Copa America, but fortunately they got Kokoro back up front, who was really, feeling himself at the start of the season. So that's a big boost for them. And Red Bull's Emil Forsberg may not play here. It's questionable. He's really a true game time call. He didn't play in that last game after coming back from friendlies with Sweden. So even if he doesn't go here, I think Van Zier, Manuel, they still have enough to break down this really bad Montreal defense. But I think that home boost and getting to stay here for Montreal definitely boosts that attack a little bit more. And Red Bulls have been a little bit leakier on the road, so I see goals in this one. I'm going to go with a 2-1 Red Bulls win, though. I don't think it'll be that easy, though. Next up, we got Charlotte taking on Orlando here. Charlotte in just unbelievable home form. 5 straight clean sheets at home with 3 wins in those games, just coming off another 1-0 result against DC. And Orlando just 1 point in its last 4 games. 3-1 loss to LAFC at home. Charlotte gets the benefit of staying home once again. Orlando has to travel a little bit after a home game. And I see more of the same here for Charlotte. I just don't see. Orlando's attacking numbers have been pretty bad. Muriel has obviously been a bust so far. Even that 2-striker formation isn't working. And Orlando just has so many guys out as well, with Galese, even though he hasn't been good. Galese in goals out for Copa America. Brecalo in defense. And a couple other key, sort of midfielders. Just absences everywhere. And Charlotte gets to stay home here. I just don't see Orlando being the team that kind of breaks this clean sheet record. And they still have some defensive struggles of their own. So, honestly, I'm going to say 2-0 Charlotte win here. It should be more of the same. They're looking strong. Really no injury concerns. And they should just keep rolling here at home. And for the team that has the most points at home in the East so far, and second most in the league, only behind LAFC. Moving on, we got a game between two of the sort of bottom dwellers in the East here. Two teams that have really, really interesting games if you're neutral, but non-reliable defenses and just spurts of brilliance and, whatever the opposite is. DC coming off that loss to Charlotte. Atlanta coming off that tie, disappointing because they were winning late. 2-2 tie at home against Dynamo. And yeah, both these defenses obviously suspect. DC with a couple center backs out and more defensive injuries, and they also won't have Benteke for this as he got yellow card accumulation, so he's suspended. And Atlanta obviously without the usuals because of the tournaments. No Saba, no Schließ, no Giacomakis once again since he's been signed to Cruz Azul. So I just think either side could take the 3 points here. I definitely trust DC's offense a little more, even without Benteke. I just like their pieces a little bit more and their energy. But I'm gonna lean 2-1 to DC here. But I could see goals, multiple goals from either side here. Neither has been reliable. Neither's form is that different between home and away. So this is a true toss-up. Here we got one of the matches of the week. Definitely my personal favorite, even without all the players from Miami. But to touch on that, no, Miami with it coming off a huge win on the road against Philly, without all those players, Messi, Suarez, and the like, because of these tournaments who are going to be gone for about a month, and they get 2 red cards and they still beat Philly super, super late. Philly just in a crisis right now with their own injuries, their own players gone. Carranza, probably their best striker, leaving now to Feyenoord. But still, just such an unbelievable result, especially with all the players they had out. And now they come back home here, and Columbus having to travel from New York on the short rest, long distance. But still, they had obviously everyone had a lot of rest before these 2 matches. So I don't see I don't see too much rotation here, especially for Columbus. Columbus obviously with that huge win against NYCFC, and focusing on the league now. I just think they have way too much for Miami as the roster currently is because of all these players, being out. The defense is just so weak, and the weather is questionable here with rain and the like. So I'm not gonna say Columbus embarrasses them, but I don't know, man. It's super hard to bet against Columbus now, especially as they're starting to focus on the league here and the quality of their players. I'm gonna say 2-0 Columbus. I just don't see Miami, even with their decent replacements, Campagna, Taylor. I just don't see them, matching the energy and intensity of Columbus as this match goes on. Here's a game which I think is going to be the biggest snooze fest of the week and the least watchability rating. Toronto is hosting Nashville. Toronto gets to stay home after a really, really disappointing 1-4 draw, 1-4 loss for them to the Fire, who got their first road win of the year in the process. And then Nashville has to continue their road trip after a 0-0 draw at Red Bulls, which defensively is impressive. They've definitely improved in that aspect with Zimmerman back. But offensively, it's still just so stagnant, man. Only one of their last 5 games has seen the over hit, the 2.5. And it's just not trustworthy. Mukhtar and the rest of the guys just aren't clicking no matter what. And then they also have Moore and Godoy out for Copa America. So definitely some key losses and creativity, pace gone for them. Bernadeschi's back for Toronto here after suspension. But yeah, they just didn't look convincing at all. They really don't offer much besides these DPs who kind of carry them, at least in my opinion. And Herdman was just ripping them in a sense after that loss, talking about how disappointed he was just in everything. And yeah, 2 teams not really, Toronto defensively hasn't been performing to the standard that they set at the beginning of the year. It's been kind of really back and forth for them. So neither of these teams trustworthy right now. I'm going to say 1-1 draw here. It'd be hard. You'll be hard pressed to find goals here, in my opinion. Cincy hosting Philly here. 2 teams that couldn't be on more opposite ends of the spectrum. Cincy really couldn't be in higher spirits. Philly couldn't be in worse. Cincy coming off that huge win like we talked about, 4-2 at San Jose. They've won 4 of their last 5, the only loss being that kind of shocker against Nashville. And Philly only 1 win in their last 5. Bunch of draws mixed in there, and then obviously with against 2 less men, Miami at home, they don't win. They don't even draw, they lose. So Carranza's also gone to Feyenoord, like we said. A lot of injuries and departures because of the tournaments for them. So they're just everywhere right now. And Cincy, they've lost Miazga actually in that San Jose match for the year. So that's definitely unfortunate for them. Not even to talk about that. Miles Robinson, their other center back, has gone for America. So two of their top center backs out. One for the year, one for about a month. But still, I think this team is way more confident and has way more belief in their system and can just plug in and out with these reserves that they just still pull out these results. They've been doing it all year and keeping to that supporter shield form. So I think the attack's been clicking even without Bupenza, Baird out. Everyone's been plugging in like Kubo, Kelsey, all the like. Even with a little bit of rotation here, maybe Acosta's going to be doing his thing. Just Philly can't be trusted right now, even though they are the only unbeaten team left in the league on the road. I think that ends here, and Cincy gets a 2-0 win. Austin hosting LAFC here. Austin with 3 losses in a row with just 1 win in those games. 1 goal. And LAFC with 8 wins in a row in all comps, 6 of those in MLS. They've just been rolling teams, and they've really improved on their road form during that time as well. Obviously coming off that 3-1 win just now to Orlando. And they have to continue this road trip. It's a little bit of a travel here, but Austin also traveling back from the West Coast, from Colorado. They're just really not looking good right now at all. I've never been high on this team in recent times. This whole season, they've been really getting by on their home form, and they are at home here, but all their numbers have been just screaming that they're due to regress down in these standings, and they're still 8th right now, which is in the playoffs. But this team just doesn't inspire me. LAFC, Bawanga's just playing 90 after 90 after 90, so there's no reason to think that any rotation happens here for him at least, and that's all they really need. Like, even with Oliveira gone, like everyone in this defense has been literally top 3. Now they've pushed themselves up there because of this 8-match winning streak. So there's just everything to like about this LAFC team. Austin's defense is just horrible. Their offense isn't inspiring. So yeah, I'm gonna go for a 3-1 LAFC win here. Dallas hosting Minnesota in what is a rematch of 2 weeks ago when there were only 4 games during that international break where those 8 teams didn't get the week off. And in that game, it was 1-1 in Minnesota. And despite what the standings stay here, I'm going to trust Dallas here to win, actually. I think with Ferreira back, their offenses look definitely much better. And Minnesota, their last 2 road games have been 2-0 losses. Their form hasn't been the best, just 1 win in their last 5 overall. And they just have too many losses and players out to trust them here. Both their main striker options, Olusei and Pukki, out. The Olusei going for Canada, Copa America. Pukki has picked up an injury. St. Clair, their starting keeper, out for Canada as well. And they have a bunch of other players either suspended or honestly just doubtful to play. Their defensive numbers, especially on the road, have really been poor. Dallas's hasn't been that much better, but at home here, I just think Dallas has more to offer in attack, and they're definitely clicking more coming off that 2-0 win against St. Louis. So kind of a rare clean sheet for them as well. I think they're definitely in higher spirits. Minnesota has to continue their road trip after coming from Sounders. So I think all signs point to a Dallas win here. I'm going to go 2-0 Dallas once again. I know I said Nashville-Toronto was probably the snooze fest of the week, but this is up there as well for me personally. Houston taking on Sounders. Houston with a 2-2 draw over the weekend to Atlanta. Sounders with a pretty big 2-0 win against Minnesota. And yeah, Houston just getting by. Carrasquilla should be going soon to Copa America, which I thought he would be gone since he's been called up and he'd be with the squad. But he played last game, and I think he'll probably play this game as well, I guess, before the tournament starts in a couple days or so. I think that's partially just because it's taking place in America, so you can just join the squad quickly. But still, some of the worst attacking numbers in the league and the best defensive numbers in the league out of Houston for the most part. And the Sounders really just aren't that creative offensively. Even their home form, they're on the road here, but even their home form hasn't been great. I just don't see goals in this one either. I think either side is capable of sneaking out a 1-0 result here. But I'm going to lean for the Houston side, who usually has been a wagon at home. But I think if Carrasquilla plays here, that's definitely a huge boost for their creativity. And still, what is going on with Pedro de la Vega for Sounders? Who knows? And until then, they just really don't inspire me in terms of their offensive creativity. So 1-0 for Houston, I think. Kansas City hosting RSL here, and I think RSL should handle Kansas City easily. Kansas City with just one win in their last 5. The other 4 of those were losses. The only win was during that international break where those couple teams played, and they needed a red card to beat Sounders at home. They just haven't been reliable defensively. Their offensive numbers are stinking it up. RSL obviously first in the West, and 13-match unbeaten run, still pulling out draws when they can, even when they haven't been at their best. And though they have to come from Montreal to Kansas City, they just really haven't been rotating too much, even in these midweek and congested fixtures. It's really been most of the same, lineups. They have a lot of youth around Arango as well, so that's kind of partially probably part of why they've just been able to log these minutes. And yeah, Kansas City, especially at home, just hasn't been reliable at all. Nothing to really like about this team until Vermees goes. And I'm going to go for a 2-0 RSL win here on the road. St. Louis hosting Rapids here in a Western Conference battle. In terms of the betting odds, St. Louis is favored, and I don't really see how. I think Rapids get a result here. St. Louis just has too many injuries right now. I mean, Pompeu just went out for the year. Ostrak's been out for a couple weeks now, and he's also out for the year. Haybert's out, one of their defenders for Copa America. Parker suspended, another defender. Nilsson, questionable. Their defensive struggles have already been bad. They obviously have so many injuries there, a couple in midfield. Their offensive creativity hasn't been there. I know Lowen's back, who really drives them, but they haven't really been converting on the chances they do get. And their depth has really been tested. They've just been like draw FC this whole year. They have 3 losses and 2 draws in the last 5. Rapids obviously weren't in the best run of form, but they just got a really good pick-me-up win against Austin, 2-0. And they obviously have to travel here. But, unless we see a lot of rotation here, I just don't see how Rapids don't put up multiple goals here and possibly get themselves a result. Their defense is pretty average towards the top half of the league, but on the road that's been a little bit worse. So, I don't see St. Louis getting shut out here, especially at home. They've had struggles with that anyways, but I think this could see a lot of goals in it. And I'm gonna say 3-2 Colorado win as long as most of these starters go. Galaxy staying at home here. They're hosting NYCFC. Galaxy obviously with that win against Kansas City over the weekend, and then NYCFC with a rare home loss, albeit though to the Crew, who are just obviously a wagon. And now they have to travel all the way across the country on a couple days rest to LA. And Ricky Puig still questionable for this one, but obviously LA got by without him. They still look pretty comfortable. That was against KC though. NYC has had a pretty good defense. They were obviously, it's hard to tell where they're at right now because, part of how that played out against the Crew is because of that red card. And obviously their home form has been really carrying them this season, but they've still been a pretty competent side as their 4th place suggests in the East. So it's hard to gauge what's going to happen here. I could see goals here, but I feel like even if Puig doesn't go, Painsel's back now. I think Galaxy can squeak out another win here just with all the factors with City traveling and all that. So yeah, I don't want to trust Galaxy's defense, but I'm going to say 2-1 for Galaxy here. Final game of the slate here, San Jose taking on the Timbers. And San Jose with another collapse, as is the standard for them, against Cincy. So another loss for them, and they're bottom of the West. And Timbers in 10th. They didn't play this past weekend, so they had that sort of bye. But they did play during that short slate where there were 4 games. So they haven't had the most rest, but they will be well rested here. About a week and a half off. And yeah, San Jose staying home. There's no reason for me to not like goals on both sides. A lot of goals in this one. The last game was 3-2, I think, for the Timbers. Obviously, a hard done red card for the Quakes in that reverse fixture, but really no injury concerns to speak of when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. Timbers have two of their better defenders in Miller and Araujo gone for the tournaments, and then also Crepeau, their keeper. And both of these defenses in general are have the worst numbers in the league. They just give up goals constantly. But the Earthquakes' attack is in that top half of the league. They've been pretty good despite not getting the results. They just have back and forth games, which is great for a neutral. I don't I don't know how you can trust the side on this one, but I think San Jose was really hard done and looked much better against the Timbers in that first game before that silly red card. And they're staying at home here. Timbers a little bit too much time off for them maybe. So still can't trust either defense, but I'm gonna say San Jose gets a 3-1 win here against the Timbers. Thanks for tuning in once again, guys, and supporting the show. Just a reminder about the betting content if you are interested in that and have been following the show for that and are interested in that for this week's slate, make sure to follow my Twitter because I'll be posting my plays there. Obviously, in this video, we just talked about all the games naturally and my predictions, but not really specific betting stuff. So I'm definitely going to have plays for this week. I just wanted to wait for lineups and make sure about those types of things before these games get started because we've been kind of thrown in for a loop sometimes with kind of shocking last minute lineup decisions and omissions. So I definitely want to get a clear view of who's playing because even though these teams had a lot of rest prior to this weekend, it is still a short week, so you never know what these teams are going to look like sometimes. But usually I am not gonna go back on or completely switch my opinion on a game based on what I was talking about in this video. Like I was saying, for example, I see Cincy winning against Philly. If I were to bet on that game, it would probably just be Cincy money line to win, just based on what I see from the lineups. If that confirms or makes me more confident in that pick. It's going to be very rare that something I talked about in this video I'm going to completely 180 on, and if I make a bet on a game, it's going to be something opposite. So what I was talking about in this video was basically my leans for the games, and if the lineups are full strength for a certain game that I've been really eyeing, then that's probably the direction I'm going to go. So that's just some context for that. And yeah, once again, I'm definitely going to have a lot of plays for these games. I really like a lot of these spots, and it's just about the lineups. So once again, make sure to follow the Twitter. And once again, thanks for watching, guys, and tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment what you think of my predictions, what your predictions are for this week and your favorite match. And I'll see you in the next video, guys. Peace.